while we're experiencing Black joy, let's also continue the fight. So keep on keeping on. Those are my words of encouragement. And whatever we can do at Assembly for the Arts, we are here for you. Assembly for the Arts is the arts council for all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean the people in this room. So we are here for you.
Thank you. Go to that. I'd like to ask Gwen Garth to share with you why she felt it was important to do this work and to create this publication.
Besides the artist, I'm a community activist. So he asked me to get together some Black artists to help vote for the tax. And I was saying, so why should we vote? We ain't get no money. So I found out that between the year, 97, when they first started the cigarette tax. So many of you know that the city had passed the sin tax, okay? Part of the money of the sin tax, the liquor money, which is sports, cigarette tax money, which is arts and culture. So the first 10 years, 160 artists went through Creative Workforce Fellowship. They got about $20,000 to do their work. And out of 160 over 10 years, only 10 of them was Black. Okay? Wow. So when he come to ask me to vote to get people together for the second round, and I applied for Creative Workforce Fellowship, and I got a 0 in 2 of my applications, and I could not understand how you get a 0 in art. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, oh, this stuff is rigged. That's a polite word, okay. So the councilman, he told me, county councilman told me, he said, get on the board. So I knew nothing about the board. So I got on, I was doing learning, what do they call it? While they're training, learning, working, learning, and, you know, learning all about it and stuff. And they kept acting like the white folks on the board said, like, where are the Black artists? We don't know where they are. So we have been meeting for some while at Ed Parker's place, talking about doing a directory. And so I said, it's time now. I don't mind being at the table fighting for you guys, but I need some faces on the other side that look like me. Because at those meetings, and I advise you to start running Cuyahoga County meetings, showing up. Even if you don't know what's happening, just show up and you can learn what's happening. That's what we need to do. We need to be standing up and being in these places where we're not normally seeing, where money is being passed, so that they'll know that we are paying attention, okay? So we got together, it was like 6 of us. I was like, come on y'all, it's time. And so we each we each sent invitations through our email, and we came up with the first iteration of the book is $40. I had some copies of it made. It was done in 2018. We're doing a small fundraiser to help with the second issue. So it has 40 artists in here, and not many of them are young folks. So once this book came out, everybody was like, when I ain't in here, you know, so it is taking some time, because like Vince said, that getting people together is really like herding cats, get them to get their pictures taken and their bios, you know, send them at one time. And then we wanted a quality book. We had, like he said, we started to make this one issue. Lily Curry said, no, this is an important thing. And so we've been working at trying to keep it going, because it is. It serves as a platform for us, one. And then it serves as a gathering space for us. This is one place where we can all be together. I don't care how small it is, we can all be together in a space. You know, that last panel discussion we had, people were talking about, for me, this is a legacy. I'll be 72 this year, and I do want to leave something behind. I consider myself the heritage of the Black artist. When I get in the door, I'd be like, come on, y'all. You know, come on, let's see what's happening here.
And we can allocate and delegate. And we can still accept, but we can become our own owners and our own partners and our own creators so that the pot isn't so thin and everybody in the necessarily black part of that pot isn't reaching for the same things, you know? And I think that all comes from a mindset. That all comes from us kind of not understanding where we fit in that black space as artists. And just Cleveland in general, like, it's a little segregated. Just, you know, to not say words, but it's definitely segregated, and you know if you're an artist where you lie in the community, and you know what things you have to do to market yourself outside of that community to get your due diligence and to get your demanded profits. And I feel like if we all have that same energy, but keep that in a sense of ownership and understanding how to own galleries, understanding how to own land, understanding how to renovate property into spaces that we own, then all this stuff that we're talking about is naturally gonna come.
Can I add to something that you started out with? And that was having us all in, you know, at least a nice representation in a magazine. I still have young people say to me, "You are the first artist I ever met." And so for them to be able to pick up a magazine like that on a coffee table or maybe at a school, for them to be able to see it's not just one person maybe featured in the newspaper or maybe one person you might see on a news show. You're actually flipping through and you're like, oh my God, you know, this one does this, and they say, oh, and I'm into this, and there's like 5 people in Cleveland that are doing this, or they look like me. I mean, I cannot tell you how important that is for our young people, and in this day and age to say you were the first, and I think what they're talking about is professional artists in their mind, that I am the first one that they ever met. That's pretty deep.
I want to add to that, this book is in the library, it's in the Cleveland Public Library. So, and the next issue will be also, we want to try to do a hard copy, a tabletop book, and we're also, would like to get together and figure out how we can go further with this. Yeah.
I'll just echo what everyone else has already said, but I also wanted to add, for me, this publication, so my background, I'm an arts administrator, my background's in marketing, and I work with a lot of artists and creative people, and I really care about their success. And for me, this publication is about visibility. I really like what you said, Joyce, about the next generation, knowing who artists are, that the artists look like everyone in this room. It's important for them to aspire and know that yes, you can pursue a career as an artist and have a viable career, but also thinking about just our overall arts ecosystem. I've had the honor of working with a lot of artists and creative people in some of our larger institutions. And while I was in those spaces at the Cleveland Museum of Art or MoCA or wherever, it was really important to me to bring our culture into those spaces, because that's the only way we're going to diversify those predominantly white institutions. We're going to diversify their audience, but also because we have so much to bring to these spaces. There's a wealth of talent in Cleveland: dancers, musicians, composers, producers, fashion designers, literary artists, theater people, and we don't even realize how much talent is within our city.
Identify what the needs of artists are. And I think we have a pretty good grip on what those needs are, but we need to know what's important to you, but we also need to let you know what resources are available to you. As I was having that conversation with Deirdre yesterday, and I brought a few things up, she says, well, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing that, they're doing that, and perhaps we should have some synergy amongst these groups and There's no need to duplicate the wheel. There are just so many ways that we can connect with each other and move things forward. But I want to open it up and talk about the history of the struggles of artists in the city, but also what's being done now to address those issues.
Just to get everybody up to speed, I'm in the process of very rigorous renovation. I'm renovating my grandparents' property on Forest Avenue in the Buckeye area into an art house studio. So we have crazy introduction to legacy, introduction to real estate, introduction to the community, and it's just kind of like, okay, where I'm at, which is Buckeye, is a very, I like to call the heartbeat of Cleveland. You don't really get through Cleveland navigation without Buckeye. And Buckeye has looked like what we all know Buckeye to look like. So in that situation, the artists, they don't stop being born, you know? The creativity, it doesn't die. It's still energetically running through these communities, regardless. So unfortunately, it caps our creativity when that eye of what we're looking at is destruction. And we don't, as artists, always call it destruction because we're artists and we know how to make, you know, something beautiful out of something that's probably not so beautiful, like the neighborhood, like your actual area, maybe your personal street, like Forest Avenue. The entire street is abandoned. The properties across the street from my particular property are abandoned. When I was a kid growing up, it was a whole apartment complex directly across the street, totally gone now. It's a Dollar General though. It's a corner store though. It's a Dollar Tree down the street though. It's a Rally's right there. It's a McDonald's right there on 116. It's a Simon's grocery store. They can't figure out which one to put. We need a Whole Foods. I don't know why it can't be in Buckeye. You know what I'm saying? We need smoothie shops. We need salad bars. Black people like that stuff. We like something. We got vegan options. We don't have that though, specifically by design. So when you're in that area and you don't know that and you're not educated, and you might be a young artist or a young person or just a young creator trying to figure everything out, you get stuck in that. You think that's who you are. You don't understand how to disidentify yourself from where you're at unless you put yourself outside of that community and you see the other side. And then you see, like how I was raised, between Buckeye and Larchmere and Shaker. I see boutique shops on Larchmere. I see a movie theater up the street. I remember East Coast Custard. I remember the Gap at Shaker Square. Really? Yeah. I remember going up the street, walking up the street, literally, to Larchmere, and just being able to walk up the street. I can't do that on Buckeye. I mean, I can't, but you just don't, you know what I'm saying? That's an issue as an artist, to freely navigate. We're energetic beings. We have to be able to freely navigate. We can't be captured our creativity. So to answer the question specifically, that is all by design, okay? That redlining, that what you can and can't do in your neighborhood, that unspoken conversation, those unspoken rules, those unspoken and unseen lines. The reason why I can literally see Buckeye and then go to Shaker and it's a totally different vibe. The reason why the street signs are white in Shaker and then they turn blue for Cleveland, that's by design. That messes with your mind as an artist. That all has to change if we're gonna have this conversation and if we're gonna see the future of what we're talking about be even, on an even keel. It's the infrastructure and how this was built that has to be remixed and flipped so that we can all be successful.
Jada hit on a lot, and I think thinking about our neighborhoods and where our opportunities and where artists reside, it's like you said, it's all connected. Your original question, Vince, thinking about how artists, what the history of Black artists has been in Cleveland. I think, you know, there's still a lot I'm continuing to learn about those who came before us, and I think that's really important. I don't know how many of you know artist Charmaine Spencer, but she gave me a book that, it's about the size of this one actually, that it was like Cleveland Black Artists 1970 to 1989 or something like that. It was an actual book, and I cherished it because, you know, there's so many artists like, you know, who came before us who I'm still learning about, and I'm wondering where they are today. Some of them are still with us, like Lawrence Baker or some of the other elder artists in our community. But we know that visibility and respect for our artistry and our culture has been missing historically, that we haven't been given the same limelight and showcase at large institutions historically, that we've been missing and omitted and left out of those spaces historically. And so it doesn't create those examples where young people can say, oh, I aspire to be an artist, because you're not seeing other people, quote unquote, make it, and that representation hasn't been there. I have a lot of, you know, respect and admiration for people like Gwen, who have been celebrating and encouraging artists like every day. I mean, if someone walks in a room and says, if Gwen will ask them, are you an artist? And they'll say, maybe, kind of sometimes. Gwen says, no, you are an artist. You are an artist, and I love that about Gwen. I also think about people like Mr. Edward Parker. You know, he created his own art museum down the street from University Circle. He didn't wait to be validated by an institution. He said, I'm a master sculptor, I'm an educator, I care about my community, I'm gonna create my own museum. So the Edward E. Parker Museum of Art stands to this day in East Cleveland. And that's inspiration for us all, that yes, you can, and you don't have to wait for an institution to have that validation. You can build your own legacy. You can create on your own, and that's been an important lesson to learn. I think another really great example that I didn't learn about until my adult life was the legacy of the Malcolm Brown Art Gallery. And I see a few heads nodding, but for those who are not familiar, the Malcolm Brown Gallery was started by an art teacher who taught at Shaker Heights High School, and he was looking for more opportunities to share his art with Cleveland. And so he and his wife decided to open an art gallery in his name, the Malcolm Brown Gallery. It was in Shaker Heights on Van Aiken, opened in 1981. And that was the first commercially owned Black art gallery in the United States. In the United States. So, you know, Malcolm Brown was an artist. He opened a space. He invited other Black artists to show their work. He created a culture of art collecting that inspired curators at the Cleveland Museum of Art, who were not yet collecting Jacob Lawrence, who were not yet collecting Romari Bearden. That started by a Black-owned art gallery and an artist who was an educator in our schools here. So I'm lifting those up as examples, but I'm also, you know, acknowledging that those individuals had to rise up out of frustration and saying, you know what, I'm not going to let what has historically been the case around a lack of equity and inclusion, I'm not going to let that stand in my way. I'm gonna create, I'm gonna build, I'm gonna start a legacy, and I'm gonna keep it going. And that's the kind of energy that you know, I think is really important for us to sustain. These are stories that need to be told, history that needs to be shared, and again, like, I think it's important for us all to continue to learn about those who came before us. I'm looking around and I'm thinking about St. Kobe. So yeah, that's all I'll share. I don't have a whole breadth of history, but I just know that there's been a lack of inclusion. It's been what's driven most of us in this room to keep going. And yeah, thank you.
You mentioned a lot has been mentioned about those who have and done things, especially like Ed Parker, a very dear friend of mine. He's holding it down, has 4 buildings. in East Cleveland and stuff. That's what we need to do. I wanna talk about my team here and Robin and stuff. We have worked together and supported each other forever. Okay, and there's not been no argument. How can we come together as a group? If you look at Project Row Houses in Texas, there's a group of artists that got together and bought up a whole row of houses, and it's all art. Okay, those are the types of things that we need to do. I want to open the floor later maybe for Boris. But I also want to, since I've been working with Neighborhood Connections, I've learned a lot about philanthropy. And I want to give accolades to the Cleveland Foundation. Because not only do they talk, they put their money where their mouth is, okay? And they're still learning, they ain't perfect and none of that, but they're still learning and are willing to take risk. When they formed Neighborhood Connections, it was a risk that they took by coming down on the ground to find, to get grassroots people to do some work, and you don't have to, and you don't have have to be a nonprofit. The thing is coming together. If I don't know, then help me. I met Jada in the arts and craft aisle of Walmart. And we've been together ever since. I was telling her about the board. I was so mad. I'm telling every artist I sing, and Pakistan was there. I was talking, are you an artist? You know, and I was telling them about the Cuyahoga arts culture and stuff. This is the kind of thing we got to do. We can't sit on information. We got to participate. If somebody needs your skill set, come on, join up, and it'll make it a bigger thing. That's the kind of thing that I want to see. I want to see us build stuff together. I got Jada, and Jada has told me about our houses and stuff. I said, look, I got a few dollars. I want you to show me how to invest my dollars. You know, this is the kind of thing that we need to do. When once somebody don't know, we got to pull each other up and stay there with them and quit. See, that to me, the biggest thing was the psychological slavery was much worse than the physical slavery, because we still hooked up in prison in our minds, you know. Once we come out of that and go with the spirit of the thing and be who we are creative. We are creative. Who can survive all of this before the years? We got to create a way, you know. So these are the kind of things that I'm looking at. Where do we go from here? How can we work together and build this stuff? This starts here on our Deidre and them know more. Deidre and Jada, they the marketing people. They know more than I do, but that's what I like about each of us. We stay in our lane because we know our lane, and we let each other do it, you know. And that's the kind of thing. But we come together and to build one thing at a time.
Thank you for that. And I just want to point out that we have these conversations about intergenerational connection, and this is the proof of that. You know, I'm in awe of these two young ladies here. You know, when I see what they're doing, I mean, I'm on Facebook, I look up Jada's in California, she's doing something. You know, Deidre is on her bicycle on one side of town, and the next thing she's in an art gallery somewhere, you know, just like Brother Jeremy, just everywhere doing everything. But I think it's really important for us to connect on those levels because we all have our different skill sets. Jada is a master at social media, and so is Deidre. Deidre can put together a Google spreadsheet just like that. You know, we still trying to struggle with Excel. You know, she's on another level. But, you know, then there are things that come from the creativity that we have because we've been around for so long and because we understand people. We can share those lessons with them so that we can do things like this. So it's really important for people to come with their skills and their talents and contribute to a collective effort. That's how it works. It's not just because there's one person in charge or another person in charge. I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons that as as artists in this community, we have not organized to the level that we should, is because of that nasty thing called ego. You know, and if you want to make progress, you gotta kick ego to the side and just focus on what needs to be done, and who needs to do what, and get it done. I want to embellish something that Jada mentioned, and that was that this is planned. The way our neighborhoods are changing right now, this is something that has been planned for a long time. Gentrification didn't happen overnight. And there are empty lots on this side of town. They're just spaces and places that are being held for folks who are looking at profit. I don't want to criticize progress, but I'm over on Larchmont, and there was conversation about a Dollar General store going up on the corner of 121st and Larchmont, and there was opposition to that from some folks in the community. So what's on that property right now? There is an apartment building. It's a condo building. People are paying $2,300 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Now the folks who live next door, they pay $2,300 a month. Matter of fact, their property taxes for the entire year might be $2,300. You know, but it's planned. If you go around the corner and you're there at the intersection of Fairhill and Martin Luther King, you see brand new building right there, right in proximity to Cleveland Clinic. You think they put that there for us? No. But whoever owns that building, just multiply 50 units times $2,300 a month and see how that sounds, okay? But the point that I'm making here is that in the neighborhoods that we have, the neighborhoods that we're in, we have to do exactly what she is doing, and that is create space. One of the greatest needs that we have for artists in this city is space to work and live. I did an interview yesterday with an artist who told me that they could not make a living as an artist. They told me that, you know, my choice is to get a job and my art would be a labor of love. If God didn't put you on earth to be an artist and you not execute that, that's a problem. And we shouldn't have to make a choice between feeding ourselves and living in our purpose. Our purpose should feed us, and it can, but we have to make the adjustment to take advantage of the resources that are out there, because as Gwen said, they're out there. We have art advocacy groups like the Assembly for the Arts. So what I want to talk about now is what we have out there. You know, reality is that there are a lot of people who aren't artists that are making decisions for folks who are. Now we can complain about it, or we can become active and we can join the boards and we can have our voice in the room. We have to. Because other than that, we're just going to be in the same cycle of folks making decisions, snapping up these properties, redefining our neighborhoods, and then we're on the outside looking in. So as opposed to complaining about it, let's talk about what's here, what we can do.
So, Assembly for the Arts is our region's arts council, as most of you know, and we are here to collaborate, to coordinate, and to convene people and organizations around supporting a healthy arts and cultural ecosystem. And so our 10-person staff, you know, we're rooted in helping to center and solve some of the challenges that, you know, artists face every day. One way that I like to think about some of the most pressing challenges that artists face is like 5 key areas. And I learned this when I started working at Assembly last year. But artists need access to space to create. Artists need access to funding, both funding for projects and then unrestricted support that can go towards everything outside of projects that artists might be creating. Artists need professional development support. So how do you monetize your artistic practice? Your artistry is a business. How are you building that? What's your vision for profiting and having a thriving artistic practice? And then also thinking about professional connections, so connectivity. How are you connected to different opportunities and networks of people and organizations to help you thrive and find the next opportunity? So at Assembly, we have a number of programs. For example, we recently introduced the Creative Impact Fund. This is the first fund of its kind, where we're awarding artists to do projects in neighborhoods that have been historically redlined. The prize associated with that is going to 16 different artists. Part of the funds can be used for a project in a redlined neighborhood, or the funds can be used for unrestricted support for anything else to support your day-to-day. And the idea behind that is to help encourage equity and help lead to transformative change in our communities, which we believe is definitely, the arts is a key part of the social fabric of our city. We know the arts have a big economic impact, but how are we creating more connectivity and access for artists, specifically artists of color, Black and brown artists? So looking at the power of art and looking at funding, that's one particular program that's rooted in that. Also thinking about how we're working with different partners, looking at Boris. Here we are at the Cleveland Foundation headquarters, and our foundations, both the Cleveland Foundation, GUND, and some of the other large ones in our region. How are we continuing those conversations? Jeremy's especially part of that in talking with those senior strategists in arts and culture, and how are we moving the dial, the investment, increasing the investment in the arts. We're also advocating for, so we talk about advocating for equity, we're also advocating for increased funding in the arts. So increased funding in the arts is not just for individual artists, but like how are, in addition to Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, which is the tobacco tax, how are we increasing investment in the arts, money for individual artists? The topic of a guaranteed income for artists is one that we're very interested in, that the larger cities like Chicago, New York, Minneapolis, Seattle, they're having those conversations around how to retain artists in those cities, because they realize how important arts and culture is to their economy. Like, how is guaranteed income for those artists leading to a better industry? We should be having those conversations here in Cleveland as well. We're working with our neighborhoods and our CDCs, our community development corporations on the east side and the west side and the south side, parts of our city that don't have deep investment in the arts yet, but want to have that. We're working with our libraries. We're seeing more trends that people are finally starting to acknowledge that arts districts matter. And you can't have an arts district without artists. So how are we, you're hearing more industries finding interest in the arts. We got community development corporations like Midtown Cleveland and St. Clair Superior Development Corporation and Waterloo, and guess what? They are all interested in artists and creative people because they know that brings traffic. They know that brings value and entertainment and a quality of life that people are driven to, or gravitate towards. So that's really important. And Assembly, we're here to advocate to make sure that artists' voices are paramount, that artists are helping to lead the conversation, that artists are at the table, so that when these decisions are made, we have the input of artists who are helping to shape that strategy and work with these institutions across our region. I'm going to pause and I'm going to glance at Jeremy to see if there's anything he wanted to add.
You got it.
So, I mean, working with Assembly for the Arts, I would say, you know, Vince, you really hit on an important topic earlier, thinking about our syntax. You know, that's going to be coming up again very, very soon. Basically, it's up for renewal. The tobacco tax, a third of each tobacco product that's sold in Cuyahoga County, a third of it is invested in arts and culture. How much of that is going to individual artists? How much of that is going to nonprofit arts organizations? There needs to be a shift. The pie has shrunk because, you know, people are consuming fewer tobacco products. So if that's happening, there's less money. And if there's less money, well, we can't have artists falling to the wayside and that investment not being there. So that's really at the heart of what Assembly is doing, and this is a movement.
Imagine him 30 years ago. Oh, I have this imagination of a model where there is affordable housing and art making in one package, and they both support each other. How do you support that idea? How do we as a foundation support that idea? Imagine Theaster Gates 30 years ago. Oh, I have this imagination of a museum and an archive that are based in community and are driven by community. How do we support that? How do we make that happen? How do we invest in those ideas? So this is what I'm thinking a lot about in this new position of Director of Arts and Culture. And that is why I really wanted to have so many coffees. I wanted to learn about what these ideas are. So this is also open invitation, like anyone who wants to have a coffee with me, please drop me a line, I will. And I also will give you a tour of this building if you're interested. Thank you.
This is the big Black Avenue over here. This spot, this whole building over here. They bought all the land around here so it will not be gentrified. Okay. That's what we also have to step outside the box. Jada and I, we found some places. We've been riding around looking for, and I'm really sold on the idea of the Project Row Houses in Houston, Texas. It's such a brilliant idea. And Boris mentioned Theaster Gates over in Chicago, bought stuff for $1. And these are the kind of things, he got Chicago Housing Authority and bought a dilapidated
Church.
public housing and turned it into a artist thing. So Jada and I have been looking at some, we found us a spot over on 88 off of St. Clair would be an ideal spot for an artist thing, you know. So I want to say your ideas can be heard. We just got to speak them out and stay on that, you know, and keep pushing that. Vince mentioned a lot about sticking together. I mean, the money's coming out. They need us. They need our vote. And for me, my community activism is what has gotten my art out. Okay, so as artists, we just can't sit down. We got to paint them pictures and dance those things. You know, we got to use our art as a weapon, so to speak. You know, historically that has happened, and a lot of, you know, in the Renaissance, during the Harlem Renaissance, that's what had happened. You know, we just got to come together and stay together.
All right. And thank you, Boris. We appreciate that. I don't drink coffee, but I drink tea. All right. We want to talk about solutions too. And there are some artist opportunities and there are some marketing strategies, and we have marketing folks with us, so we want to make sure we cover those two things. So Deidre and I are serving on a committee along with Gina is also on that committee. A few others are on the committee, and we've got $3 million to appropriate to this community within the next 3 years. So there are going to be some opportunities for you. She mentioned a project that the Assembly is pushing through, and the awardees will be known next month. So you want to talk about some of the opportunities that are out there for Black artists in Cleveland 23-24.
So, opportunities for artists in 2023, 2024. We talked a little bit about the Creative Impact Fund and how we very much want to invest in neighborhoods that have been historically redlined. This neighborhood that we are in, Gwen kind of talked a little bit about it. You know, this is the creation of a Black arts district. That's what this neighborhood is going to be designed, is being designed to do. I'm looking at Asia, who is one of the visionaries who thought about that. Black Avenue is an idea that this area will celebrate the history and the culture and the excellence and the creativity of Black artists. Why? Because this neighborhood has been predominantly Black for generations. This neighborhood has lacked investment since the Huff uprisings, and that's time to change. The Cleveland Foundation intentionally put this building, this new headquarters here in this neighborhood to have a transformative impact, and the idea is for that to bleed into the neighboring community in a way that really helps improve the quality of life for folks. And so, you know, this space right across the street where you see, you know, an empty plot, you know, by 2025, that would be a new structure, the Midtown Collaboration Center. It'll be a gathering space where artists and creative people who have entrepreneurial pursuits can come for resources and inspiration. Assembly for the Arts, our office will be in that MCC building. Jumpstart, which is resources for small businesses, they'll be there. There'll be a brewery, there'll be a Black-owned brewery, some other additional Black-owned businesses. That's a start. In addition to that, you know, at the city level, our mayor is very much interested in increasing the investment on the east side of our city. The east side of our city is, as we all know, predominantly Black and brown folks, where majority of the redlining, the historic redlining has occurred. And so it's time to reverse that. It's time to bring that investment and that quality of life to the east side, to the southeast side of Cleveland. And so the Transformative Art Fund that the city of Cleveland is creating, as Vince mentioned, he and I and a handful of other, and Gwen, thank you Gwen, are part of that committee. And we want to think about how to thoughtfully make that investment and disperse that to Black and brown artists and artists who are thinking about transformative work in our communities. I'm trying to think, in addition to that, yes. Asia.
I know there is quite a few people on the committee for the ARPA funds, the $3 million. How are you all ensuring that the funds go directly to the artists and trusted organizations like Assembly? And because there's a lot of institutions that will try to go for this and say that they're doing equity and say that it's for inclusion, and we know all too well that that's not the truth. How is the people in this room on this particular commission, on this, you all have a just tremendous opportunity to provide equity. How are you all, deciphering what that's going to look like when there are CBCs that are not trusted who is applying for the funds, when there is institutions like certain museums, just being very frank, that these funds they give the funds, but we're not going to see the funds. How are you all deliberating on that? Because that's very essential.
Let me start it off and you can finish it. First of all, everybody on that committee just about black. First of all. Okay?
Secondly, we all artists,
Right.
so we understand the game, trust me.
Right. You know, Gina, it's a bunch of us already right here. And that's one of the purposes, of being sometimes on boards and stuff, to get the learning and stuff. So when I was on the board of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, I could not get any funding and stuff, but I chose to be on that board to get the learning,
Yeah.
okay? So when they had this committee come up, they told me, because I do have a nonprofit, they said, Gwen, are you sure you want to be on this? Because that means you can't get no money. Yeah, I want to be on this board, but I get some money or not. You know, so you have to make those decisions if you're fighting and stuff. What's more important? What's more important? It ain't about the money all the time. It's about us getting in some doors. You know, so when each of us get an opportunity to be in a position and stuff, we can't stand in the doorway. We gotta open the door. Go ahead.
I'd say,
Well, I think the concern is that when these funds are passed out, they don't go to those organizations that there's a concern that the artist gets their fair share of that money.
since we're talking about East Side neighborhoods that are predominantly black and brown, you know, we're talking about money going into the hands of artists. I know just last week, a big announcement was made, a newly created position for the city of Cleveland, that's been in the works for many months. You know, a person has been named for that position, Rhonda Brown. I mentioned the Malcolm Brown Gallery earlier. She's a daughter of Malcolm Brown. And she was born and bred here, right here in Cleveland, in Shaker. Was in Chicago for many years, working in philanthropy and doing really meaningful work there. And she's bringing her talents back to Cleveland because she really cares about artists. And so she'll be helping to lead this committee, this strategy at the city level for what does investment look like and how is it being dispersed equitably. You know, as Vince mentioned, this committee that we serve on, it's predominantly artists. I'm the only person who's not, you know, professional artist. I'm a creative person, but you know, it's stewarded by people who have been working in this field and who have been advocating for artists for many years. And so we'll be working together. I'm looking at Gina too. We'll be working together to really define what that looks like, and we'll be talking to people. I mean, I don't claim to know have all the answers, but I know in my heart what my values are and what our people need. And think about the history of this city, the history of redlining, the history of black people who have been politically successful, and thinking about people whose legacy we want to see continued on. So I'm thinking about the inspiration, but I'm also thinking about what needs to change. And so no, I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Important for you all to be connected to Black Kuumba and this collection, the new collection of artists. Because there are big things happening in the city, talking about resources. You heard about one of them, the cigarette tax. It's successful, and it will be successful. It may generate up to $20 million a year. Right now it's down to $12 million. It's sliced, the pie's gotten smaller. $20 million a year times 10 years. How are those dollars equitably distributed? But that's only one piece of the pie. This is what I want to share with you. Let's not put everything on that slice of the pie. There are major investments to the billions, if not trillions of dollars happening across our region. And artists, as Mr. Vincent said, need to be at the table. Think of the lakefront development. There's a big commission that's been created. I'm hopeful that our liaison in the mayor's office will be pushing for artists there. That is a close to $1 trillion investment. The lakefront, all the way from the west side, all the way to the east side. They've been having community meetings and surveys. It's so important for artists to be a part of that. There are other investments across our city. Look at the Cuyahoga Riverfront, Irishtown Bend, $1 billion where are artists, creatives in this room a part of that? I'm going to be looking to Black Kuumba as I'm writing proposals and saying, hey, we do exist, we are here. So that's why I want to put a special plug in for being a part of this group, for signing up. But there's more. We're working with our city. Kudos to the city for the $3 million. But there's more. $3 million in the realm of things, that is just a beginning. This city rises because of the creatives that are here. Assembly, we're a part of, we're working with Greater Cleveland Partnership. They just did a huge, big annual meeting. The beginning of their video is all about creatives. I think my voice is even on the video. We need not just to be a voice, but the dollars need to flow and the investment needs to happen. The final thing I want to say is to reiterate what Jada talked about. To be successful, we can't only be renters. And I love our major institutions that have the properties and we're here, but what about the people next door? What about those vacant lots? Assembly, we just did a workshop in partnership with Cleveland Lots. We as creatives need to understand this complicated process whereby we can own our own property. We're creatives. You mentioned the row houses. You mentioned the Astor Gates. Cleveland has the ingredients, but we need to be galvanized so we can own the autonomy that we're not beholden to a landlord always. There are entrepreneurs in this room and out of this room. So important. With the vacant land across the city, and yes, I hear from developers on a regular basis. And some of them, I believe they have great hearts. And they're saying, we're going to make this a place for artists and creatives. And that's fabulous. We're working with them. But wouldn't it be greater if you, Jada, had your properties where you're not, and you're doing this? Where are the other Jadas that are here? So at Assembly, we want to make this small business argument to be more and more stronger among our Black and brown communities. It is about collectives with major institutions, and we have plenty of them, and they're doing the right thing. But it's also about autonomy. We can't be a strong city without autonomous creatives, autonomous small businesses. I really feel strongly small businesses are paid lip service. We say they're the biggest part of our economy. You hear that from the White House, you hear that from the State House, and then you look at who is getting that investment. We spend a lot trying to lure big Fortune 500 companies here, but it's the small businesses. They're the ones that drive Larchmere. That's why we all want to be there, right? It's not because it's a big company there, but we have a boutique here, a restaurant there. It's that mix. So where is that mix in the other parts of our city? So important. And how does that plan get laid out? In the next 2 years, 3 years, we need that creative plan with your input. So there's
Development, what can we do to enhance your property by bringing in art from local artists? You don't have to bring in something from somewhere across the country. And another thing, and I'm just remembering because we had a conversation about what we were going to do today. We were talking about connecting with artists from other cities, okay? Wynn is working with some folks in New York. We got a brother who was in the Tri-C Jazz Fest. Now he's at the August Wilson Center in Pittsburgh. And he's blowing it up. And he's bringing in folks from all over the country, including Cleveland. So it's not just about being siloed in this city. It's about reaching out and connecting with others and finding out, what are you doing where you are? What works? How can we incorporate those kinds of things here so that we can enjoy the success that you're enjoying in another city? You know, so let's not be, you know, that island. You know, let's connect with each other. I think the last thing we want to talk about is marketing strategies, and we have the marketing expert with us. So, JD, you want to talk about marketing opportunities and strategies for the coming year?
This marketing strategy, to be transparent, has always been to be myself. That's the identity of my brand. Indie literally means individuality, and I push that literally through every category, folder of my brand, because it is elevated into so many different things at this point. But as an artist, you naturally get anxiety, you naturally stress out, You naturally, you just sometimes become unconfident, you just naturally go through the artist woes, right? But the key to getting through that is to remain confident in that marketing strategy that you create. So it's individual to yourself, no pun intended. But in order for me to be successful in my art, I really had to work on my mindset to walk out into a world like what we're talking about with this artist climate, to be confident, literally. It might sound very cliche, but that confidence is literally the marketing strategy. Like every single thing that I have done in my brand outside of the city and inside of the city has been because I know I can do it. I'm past belief. I know I can do it. I've seen it in my head, which means I can see it in the physical. I don't need proof no more. So at this point, this is an actual testament. Y'all see what I'm doing with my grandparents' property. Every day, like, you don't probably know what I'm doing every day, but please believe, I'm dusty every day. I'm not renovating, but I gotta delegate, I gotta pay contractors, I gotta be in there and see what's going on and know everything. That's just the start. We got 1111 Gallery coming to the St. Clair area. We got more Airbnbs coming, but that's because I know that it can happen. And Cleveland deserves that. And everybody in here has to have that same energy. That same energy behind your brand, even if you just started it. Even if you've been doing it and you're like, dang, I've been doing this, why? Because you're not confident enough. And I'm gonna tell you that. You're not confident enough. You gotta know that. It's no comparison. It's no race. It's just you. And that end goal that you got, just you. Whatever that end goal is for your artistry. But you gotta understand that you're not just the artist. You are a business person. This is not just cute. We make it cute. And it's nice. And it's beautiful to look at. But Donald Black is a businessman. He did a lot of work and strategy to get his face on the front of that when you first walk in. That's a lot of strategy to know that I'm gonna be specific in where I put my art. In an apartment complex, loft, I'm very specific. Because I want everybody that walks in here with a key fob that's going to their house subconsciously to see my art. You gotta think that deep. Lacey in here, talk to her about marketing. She know how to market. You might not know you marketing, but you marketing. Because you know what you're doing, you pass belief. You see the validity of everything you do, literally. You see through the form of what you created with that character, you ain't stopped with that character. It's been elevated into different characters and you haven't stopped. That's natural marketing. When you was doing your political campaign, it was not awkward because you're naturally in the community. You naturally market yourself. It's natural as an artist to market. You just get scared based on where we at, based on the climate, based on your natural, literally, artist woes is what I'm gonna call it. We scared, we feel everything. But we're also so powerful. Think about how that powerful, like how much power energy comes from you being scared, right? Because it's so powerful, it makes you not do something. That fear is so powerful, it'll make you not be successful as an artist. That fear is so powerful, it'll say, oh my God, I don't see it happening yet, it must not be worth it. I'm an artist, but what can I do with that? A lot. But you gotta believe that, past belief, all the time. Even like, I don't know, you can do a mantra, you can do affirmations, sometimes that's like cliche to people. Whatever it is, your little mixture you do, but you gotta remain confident. That's your marketing strategy. For artists, it's difficult to sit there and be like, you know what, let me create a business plan. I had to have mentors around me since I was 19 years old to cultivate my brain so that I can know how to split my brain. I got my artist brain and I got my business brain. They both 50-50. One can't go past the other one, or else I can't be balanced in this work that I do. So you can't be scared to say, okay, I did the art, I got all the canvases in there, now I gotta sit back and create the plan. Why are they looking at my art? That's not the question. How can I make them look at my art? What can I do? How can I be strategic? Once you figure that out, write it down consistently. Hope y'all write this down. But write it down consistently and do what you write all the time. Don't stop. Even if you don't see the result, because it's not up to you. It's up to God and whatever source you follow. But if you do what I'm telling you to do and you follow the steps, the result is gonna come. There's no date on that end goal. You can't set that date. Set a date that's tangible based on your marketing, X, Y, Z, when you want to see a goal happen, when you want to see an event happen, when you want to see your logo be made, how many products you want to push this month. But the overall end goal of why haven't I made a check? Why hasn't this hit? Why hasn't this popped? Because God told you you got some more work to do. You can't be scared of that. That's what I would say.
What Jay just said is so true. And I look at myself and I hadn't realized that it was about that. All the time I wasn't confident, but I still stepped out on that risk. My first gallery, I paid, it was $1 a month. I did a pop-up. Tim Trammell said he had an empty space and he was thinking about having an art gallery in there. So for 2 years, I kept saying, you ready for the art gallery? You ready for the art gallery? And then he said, all right, Ms. Garner, bring me a plan. I said, oh, I just happen to have one right here. so he said, all right, come on. So that was February 1st, 2014. Now I'm paying $1,000 a month rent, okay? I had a gallery space down on 9th Street, next door to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I ain't paid no rent for a whole year. They'll tell you, I got them together, I said, come on, each of y'all give me 3 pieces of art, we finna put some art up on these walls. And we went in there, and I was down there the whole year, then COVID came. But the whole thing is, you know, like Tom O'Brien came in and said, well, how did you get, and I don't even know, and I ain't gonna worry about it, we're here. You know, but it is about that confidence. It is about pursuing your passion and just keep on following that spirit within. You know.
And the question is, for those of you who have confidence, there are a lot of people who don't have that. And sometimes the thing that gets in someone's way is trauma. Sometimes the thing that gets in someone's way is just pain. And how do you get, what part of the art community collaborates with the mental health community to form maybe a coalition to build on the parks that already exist, to add, like if someone from the mental health field was here in this realm right now in the room, I can't help but wonder if they could then have a client that could go to them and talk to them about what bubbled up in this discussion to help them over the hurdle that they're facing that's within them. Because they may be great artists, they may be great orators, they may be great at whatever the art form that they use, but they just can't get past themselves. So how do you incorporate that into the work that you're doing?
Walter Patton is the creator of Ghetto Therapy. Ghetto Therapy is a space, he does it for men, women, and youth, and very intergenerational, very mixed, right here on Euclid Avenue. And the times that I've gone, and I think in the Black community, we're not necessarily allowed to talk about those pains that we can't really see, and here you're allowed to. And I think our culture is really embracing it. Our generation is really embracing, like, hold on, I'm not feeling well. And nobody can see that unless I say something. Mm-hmm. And this is where a space, the ghetto therapy, and I think this is a continuing conversation because, of course, we have our ghetto therapy, we need more of those spaces to be able to talk about those blocks and that trauma.
But it's also about grace in the space.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you can't
Yes.
see what's going on, you can see something is happening.
Yeah.
And it's that something that occupies the space.
Yes.
Because around that person, and some people, I don't know what's wrong with them. I can't fool with them today. And that does a disservice to the community.
Yeah.
It doesn't just do a disservice to that person.
Yeah.
And so I asked the question because as you build community, as we are always constantly talking about building community, we cannot leave the space empty for acknowledging that people have trauma, people have pain, people have need to be seen in totality, not just to be seen for being creative.
In this space that I keep pointing here because he just left. Ghetto therapy, it's not right in this space right here. but it is a very, very safe space. It is a place where when you share, other people's like, I went through the same. You know, so I would say that that's an actual resource, but the conversation is growing. And even you asking the question, how everybody's like, oh, that is something that I'm actually enjoying about being in creative spaces, because you may be scared, you may be fearful, but I always encourage anybody I work with, do it while you're scared. Do it while you're broken, because I can tell you for sure, you're gonna find, like, I've dealt with depression. At the age of 12, I was suicidal, didn't know what that was, but I just know I didn't want to live. So being able to be in these spaces and sharing those things, and like, wow, you know, this is normal for me to feel these ways, and I gotta connect with those in this room to figure out a pathway to get through it. And I think that's a conversation that we're continuing and we're being more open about, and I'm so grateful for that. But I know Jada has.
No, just to answer specifically, I feel like artists deal with trauma through the art. And I feel like it's more so of the outcome of the healing process that they, I would say, individually decided to go through because of what you're saying. It's difficult to express that, right? I'll speak on myself. I'm traumatized. I'm super traumatized. I've been through crazy amounts of trauma. But you wouldn't know that because of how I've chosen to dissect into my inner child, to literally heal that. I literally lost my entire house in 2018 in a house fire, everything. All of my equipment, my house, literally was homeless for like, I don't even remember how long. And I can say that without quivering in my voice now because that literal traumatic experience, I chose to go through it and see myself through that. And everybody's trauma is different. That's not even just, that's a piece of trauma I'm telling you about. But I can speak on other levels of it. But that's what makes me an artist. That's what makes me be able to curate and say the words that I've been saying because I know it. I know where we're from. I went to St. Martin de Porres, trauma all over through the hallways. Still. Literally. We in trauma right now. We sitting in the area of traumatic souls. Huff Riots was tragedy. Crazy. But you go through that by the Renaissance. You go through that by continuing, like they just saying, these conversations. And you go through that by being next to the confident. So I teach you how to do it. I teach you how to walk with me. I teach you if that voice is not loud, speak up. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's not gonna come out nice. Because trauma is not nice. And you gotta beat it, unfortunately, without being nice. That's how you do it.
I'm glad you brought that up, and then I just want to say this one thing quickly too. You brought up about, you reminded us of the different sectors of the community. And I also want to remind you guys about the returning artists, those who are formerly incarcerated, those who are presently incarcerated. I am one myself. And there's a lot of money out there also for mass incarceration, those who are working towards mass incarceration in the art field here. I just got funded to do a mobile art gallery, which I'm doing a mobile art gallery classroom, which will teach art classes and adult literacy, because these are my passions, you know. So there's a lot of money and stuff out there other than what you're looking for just in art. Jeremy talked about the B.L.A.C.K, the city plan, and these things. Become involved in these things. I'm working with B.L.A.C K because I have a lot, and they don't want to sell me the vacant lot next to me, but y'all can give me that lot. Okay. Because, you know, but these kind of things we have to work with changing policies, you know, and participate. We really gotta, you know, while you're sitting there doodle, listening to them at the meeting, you know. Yeah.
All right. Just 2 cents on top of everything else. One, we've talked about trauma, we've talked about healing, and I just want everybody to fully embrace and understand the fact that everyone in this room that considers themselves an artist is a healer. I want to further offer that this whole idea of racism as a public health crisis means that we have work to do, because we are the healers and we can address those issues head on with what we create. So I want to encourage you to embrace that idea, the notion that you are a healer, and be about the work of healing.